top of the morning, and it is a beaut.
And the hope of the Irish as the future champion of the world.
A podcast is kind of like it's like a radio show that's not on the radio.
Welcome to the Barry J. McDonald podcast. The place where dreams get dusted off and acted on. Because life is too short. We're living on a rock that's flying through space, and hey, what the hell else were you going to do with yourself here?
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode. Now, today's podcast episode is entitled, You Can't Learn Anything from Success. Now, who is your favourite singer, movie star, writer? Now, I'm sure if you probably went back through maybe their biographies or autobiographies, you would find maybe some point in time where their life just took off, where maybe someone read their book and they said, this book needs to be published. Or they listened to them maybe singing in a bar and they said, this person deserves to have an album. Or maybe they seen them playing some bit part on a stage somewhere in some play in a theatre and they said, this guy would be great in movies. I remember reading one time about J.K. Rowling and all the times her manuscript was kind of pushed from one publisher to another and everybody turned it down. And what happened was, how it actually got published was because the gentleman that had been given the manuscript had initially had reservations against it, didn't want to do it. But he had brought the manuscript home and for whatever reason his daughter picked it up. Or I don't know if maybe he gave it to his daughter, but she picked it up, she read it, she loved it, and she nagged him to publish the book. And that is why J.K. Rowling is where she is. But what if that publisher maybe didn't have a daughter? What if he didn't take that manuscript open or home with him? Would J.K. Rowling be where she is? Now you may find, well, maybe the cream always rises to the top and maybe eventually, that manuscript would be uncovered somewhere, somebody else would read it and it might have taken off from there. But what if that didn't happen? I remember reading in a book one time about someone who was doing an experiment just to see if maybe some of the great pop stars that we have right now would have been successful in different situations. Now, it's hard to go back in time and maybe just kind of play around with, who gets published and who gets unpublished. But what they did was they wanted to see, for example, was Britney Spears, was she always destined to be a pop star? But what they did was they set up three or four websites. And these were music websites. Now, when someone would land on this website, a random website would be shown to them. So 4 of these websites were kind of randomly picked every time you put the domain name in. So maybe I might type in the domain name, I might go to that music site, I might get maybe version A of the site. You may type in the same domain name, maybe you might be given version C of the website. So what they found was that when people landed on the music site, sometimes a few people would listen to a couple of songs and then those songs would go into a little small chart which would show these are the songs other people have listened to. And what they found was that, when people would land on a site, rather than maybe just go through all the songs that were on that site, they would have a look at the list of songs that were already listened to, and then they would make their choices based on that. So rather than maybe listening to maybe 100 songs on that website, they would go and have a look at that short list of maybe the top 10 or top 20. And what the person found was that on each of those sites, the top 10 and top 20 songs were never the same. There was maybe the odd song who maybe was on number 1 on website A, and they found maybe that the same song could be maybe in 10th place on website B. It mightn't even be mentioned on website C, and again, maybe not even mentioned on website D. And again, they found maybe the number 1 song on website A was never the song that was on B, C or D. It was always different ones. So what they found was that sometimes when it comes to something being successful, sometimes a lot of us kind of are lazy in our choices. We have a look at what everybody else is buying. If everybody else is buying Ford cars, well, maybe there's a reason that people buy Ford cars, so I'll buy a Ford car. Or if everybody is kind of listening to something like Coldplay or whatever, well, then I'll probably start listening to Coldplay. And you will find the radio stations that we listen to favour more artists over other ones. A lot of the artists maybe that you like might never be featured on a local station. But the same songs, because they're played over and over again, those are the ones that stick in your head, and then those are the artists that we go and see in concert or we buy their albums. So we're kind of led down this path of these are the people you need to pay attention to. But again, are those the best artists out there? Again, if we look at any chart, be that maybe writing, be that singers, be that movie stars, are the best people at the top? Or is it because, they were the right person in the right time, at the right place, doing the right thing, and that is where they are? Now, the reason I'm kind of talking about not, learning much from success, because you can't really learn much from success. If you look at Tom Cruise's, career, again, you could probably find, well, he made this movie choice because of this and that, so maybe you could learn some things from that. But what if his career was totally down to being in a random place and someone just spotted him? And again, a lot of us, when it comes to failure and success, a lot of us don't want to make failures. We don't want to get things wrong. We don't want to goof up. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to waste time. We want to have a success after success after success. But what are you going to learn from those successes? When I think back to my Minecraft kind of fiction series that did really, really well on Amazon, I hadn't a clue how successful it was going to be. I had an idea of a character that I thought would be good in a book. I wrote the book, I put it out there, and it's done really, really well. But I didn't really learn anything from that. I just had an idea, I tested it, and I was successful. But what if I had written that character, put it on the Amazon store, and it completely flopped? Well, then I would have something to learn from that mistake. I would have learned, well, the kids aren't interested in this game. They're not interested in Minecraft. They're not interested in this particular character. Maybe I could write another character in Minecraft, test that, and again, if that took off, well, then I've learned something from that failure. But because I was kind of successful out of the gate, I didn't really learn much from that, other than, this is what the kids are into. So what I would argue is maybe, sometimes we can learn a lot from people who have a lot of failures rather than the successful people, because sometimes the success that people are, going through could be just because of a lucky moment. So instead of maybe just paying attention to all the people who are successful, all the people who've got money, maybe the Jeff Bezos, Elon Musks, or whoever your hero is, maybe instead of just reading all the information, all the autobiographies, all the things they do, maybe have a look at some of the people who had a little bit of success but were just, weren't ready for it, or made mistakes, or tried things and weren't successful, and the whole thing, maybe the wheels fell off the cart, and the business fell apart, and maybe they're just back to square one. You will probably learn a lot more from people like that than you will find from the people who are successful. So don't dismiss, failures, because you can learn a lot from it. And don't try and be successful all the time, because you will find, as I found from that book series, there's not really much you can learn from success. You will learn far, far more from the failures that you have and other people have than you will from your success. Keep that in mind today. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Before you go, Barry wants to show you how you can use the power of stories to sell more of your products and services. He says that if you head on over to the rightcom.com website now, he'll show everything you need to do. Have a great day, and thanks for dropping by.